The Shadow Priest is now one of the easiest classes in the game. It has excellent single target damage and excellent AOE damage, and on top of that, as a priest, you have one of the most important utilities in the game. That means everybody needs a Shadow Priest. The first row is gonna be CC, it doesn't really matter which one you take. You can mind control some ads in some fight and you can actually get a lot of damage from that. Most likely your raid leader is gonna tell you when you gotta mind control something. If the fight doesn't demand you to mind control a mob, you go for Void Tendrils every single time. It is an AOE route, it is really good. And then this is why you take a priest every time. Angelic Feather. You can drop a feather on the ground and whoever runs on top of that feather will run 80% faster. That means that a priest single-handedly can make the raid do the mechanics a lot more efficiently. Remember guys, fights got mechanics now. Don't forget that. And when there's mechanics, speed is damage, speed is healing, speed is durability. Anything that gives the raid mobility is extremely valuable in Pandaria. And I cannot understate how important Angelic Feather is. You are gonna have to learn how to drop it in the good positions so people can run through it. If you're the guy that drops good feathers, even if you absolutely suck, people are gonna want you. Next is gonna be Solace and Insanity. It is 33% more boom boom. Do you want to know why you want 33% more boom boom? I don't think you do. It is pretty self-explanatory. Now for the defensive cooldowns, you got two options. You got Desperate Prayer. Now the problem is it only heals for 30%. I am told that early on in MoP it healed for more and it got nerfed. So yeah, sadly it is not very good now. So we're gonna be taking Angelic Bulwark. Every time your HP goes low, you get a shield. After that we got two different boom boom talents. We got Twist of Fate and Power Infusion. Power Infusion is like a mini Bloodlust for more damage, pretty good. And then you got Twist of Fate. When the target is below 35% HP, you do 15% more damage. Now this one doesn't have a cooldown, and this one does. Of course, Power Infusion is more power, but it only lasts 20 seconds. So the real question is, will the execute phase last more than 20 seconds? Actually, we can make the math for it. Power Infusion is 20% haste, so we got a 1.2 multiplier, roughly, and we got 5% extra damage, so that's a 0.5. We get a 26% extra damage, more or less. Meanwhile, Twist of Fate is a flat 15%. So if X is the amount of time we got a Twist of Fate up, we multiply that by 15, because 15%, that should equal the 26% of value from Power Infusion multiplied by 20 seconds. And the answer is a fraction, which I hate, and we can see right there, we need 34 seconds in that execute phase to get more value from Twist of Fate over Power Infusion. Now, assuming that the boss is gonna lose HP at a steady rate, another fraction, goddammit, if the fight is going to last more than 98 seconds, which is pretty much every single damn fight, Twist of Fate is gonna be better, including ads. Here is the cool part about Twist of Fate. If you damage an ad that is below 35%, you still get to keep the buff. So that means you can have more than the execute phase to do damage with Twist of Fate. So yes, except some extremely fringe fights, every single time Twist of Fate is gonna be a lot more damage. Now for the last talent, we're gonna take Halo. It is kinda similar to like a Holy Nova. It is just the best value, it heals, it does damage, just like a Holy Nova. And an extra AOE is always great. That's a 40-second cooldown too, so we can get a lot of value in AOE fights. Out of that, we can pop it out pretty much every ad spawn. If you look at the other two, Divine Star and Cascade, they are usually less damage and healing, and they are too weak, because their cooldown is shorter. Unless you're doing a fight where there is constant ads spawning, most of the time you get ads every couple of minutes or something like that. In all those scenarios, Halo is gonna do way better. It is also a really good defensive cooldown for the raid, and we need that. Now for the major glyphs, we're gonna be taking the Glyph of Inner Sanctum. It is 6% more movement speed, and moving is important in Pandaria. And then we're gonna be taking the Glyph of Fade, which is gonna turn Fade into a good defensive cooldown. And we are also gonna be taking the Glyph of Vampiric Embrace. It is gonna double the healing output of your Vampiric Embrace, so you generate a ton, and I mean a ton of HP into the raid, okay? It doesn't matter if your damage sucks, you are so damn useful, man. Not to mention it is pretty hard are to die on this spec, but you got 2 different really good healings for the entire raid as a DPSer. You got an amazing movement cooldown for the entire raid. I think pretty much every raid wants a priest, and a shadow priest is even better. Your stat priority is rather straightforward or kinda hard because everything sucks for you that isn't intellect. Intellect is gonna be your base stat, it is in every piece of gear. Sadly, you cannot reforge for it. After that, you're gonna need a hit cap of 15%. Do not forget, spirit is the same as hit rating for a shadow priest, so you prefer spirit, but it is almost nothing, it is just a little more mana regen. After that, a stat you gotta reforge a lot into is gonna be your haste cap. Yes, this time we go for a very specific haste value, and keep in mind you got racials, you got buffs, all that stuff to think about on this, so I recommend you use Reforge Light. I am gonna leave a link to that add-on in the Discord. You gotta hit a very specific haste rating, fully buffed, 220. When you hit that cap, haste is by far your best stat. The reason we do not go for more haste is that is quite literally all the haste you can get. After that, it will not decrease your global cooldown, so it is not worth it anymore, and you are probably not going to hit that cap early on in the expansion. That's fine. Even if you're partially towards that goal, haste is still the best stat for you early on. You are gonna see by the time you hit Throne of Thunder, the Shadow Priest really comes online because of haste, and after those is gonna come Mastery and Crit. They are almost the same because they are almost as useless, and that makes gearing up really difficult. You want a piece that has hit and haste. That's your best type of gear you can find, and if you are over the hit cap, that will be a problem because you're gonna be forced to take one of the junk stats. What does Mastery do, by the way? It gives your dots a chance to do extra damage. Now that may sound like a lot, and Mind Flay does count as a periodic ability, but there is 2 problems. Overall, your periodic abilities should be roughly 50% of your damage, so this will apply to only half of your damage in the first place, and secondly, and they did not change the tuning of this for the class changes they announced, the scaling on this thing is really bad. If it was like better, maybe this would be viable and Mastery would be a decent stat, so I recommend you take Crit over Mastery, but it is very close between the two. They are pretty freaking useless. You are gonna hit a massive power spike when you hit your haste cap, and after that it is only downhill, I'm afraid. There is not much you can do about that. Now, your rotation is actually one of the easiest in the game. You can open up with Mind Spike. What is Mind Spike? You do a bunch of damage instantly, but it will consume the dots. But if you start with Mind Spike, you are not gonna have any dots to consume, so that is free damage at the start of the fight, so you always open with Mind Spike. There is a new change that made Shadow a lot better, and that is you now passively generate Shadow Orbs. What are Shadow Orbs, you might ask? Devouring Plague is your #1 spell. It does a bunch of stupid damage, and it can take up to 3 Shadow Orbs to do the most damage. So it is essentially Devouring Plague charges, that's what you should call them. However, in combat you can only generate very few of them, and that's a big problem because Devouring Plague is only gonna last 6 seconds in total, and you can only generate orbs in 2 ways, and you are never gonna have enough orbs to keep a perfect tap time on it, well, until the execute phase. But Devouring Plague gives you more damage, and it will boost your Mind Flay to double damage if you got all 3 orbs, which means 2 things. You wanna do Devouring Plague when you got all the orbs, so that's 3 orbs, and you wanna Devouring Plague only with 3 orbs straight into a Mind Flay. Otherwise, it is a huge waste of value. That's something that's not commonly explained anywhere. Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch on the target, those are your 2 important dots. You gotta keep them all at all times. Now, how do you generate orbs? That's gonna be the 2 next spells. We are gonna be doing Mind Blast. It does good damage and it generates 1 orb. The problem is it is an 8-second cooldown. And we also have Shadow Word Death, which we can cast twice before we get a cooldown, a small cooldown. The problem is it only works under 20% HP on the boss. It is an execute. So we are not gonna have a good orb generation for until the execute phase, basically. If we do simple math, right, we get an orb every 8 seconds. We need 3. That means we can do a full Devouring Plague every 24 seconds perfectly if we do not have an execute phase. And Devouring Plague only lasts 6 seconds. So being able to do a Mind Flay perfectly right after Devouring Plague with every dot on the target is crucial, because we got a very small window to squeeze the most value out of the rotation. People will tell you it's a simple priority. No, it's not. You gotta play around Devouring Plague. Be very careful because I checked out a bunch of old posts and old guides, and most of them fail to explain how crucial it is to get that double Mind Flay. You could ignore it and play your priority normally because Mind Flay will be your filler at the end even if you don't have Devouring Plague, but Mind Flay on Devouring Plague with every dot will be the most DPS you can do, so you wanna do it. Now your AOE rotation is rather simple. If you are cleaving, that means you are fighting less than 5 targets. We are gonna do Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch. We're gonna tap target and cake every mob in dots. All 5 mobs you can do pretty reliably. And after that we're gonna do Halo, and after that we're gonna do Mind Seer. Those are your 2 fillers. Of course Halo has a cooldown, but Mind Seer is pretty decent. If you're fighting more than 5 targets, you skip straight into Halo into Mind Seer. One thing you can do if you're fighting ads, you can always get a Shadow Word dead on one of the low targets and get a clean execute on that, and you can do it twice, right? So you can get 2 orbs. You can drop a Devouring Plague on one of the targets. Devouring Plague will give you flat damage, but it will not give you more damage on Mind Seer. It is only for Mind Flay, so it is not a huge deal, but you can play around that. Maybe when you're fighting 2 targets, you can throw a Mind Blast for orbs. It is not a terrible idea. If you're fighting 3 or more, probably not. I would skip the Mind Blast entirely. Now, as a Shadow Priest, you have 4 important cooldowns, and one of them can kill people, which is pretty freaking cool. The one that can kill people is very similar to the Spirit Link Totem of the Shaman. You link with somebody with Void Shift, and your HP is gonna even out. And you can swap the HP they have to the HP you have. So if they are at 10% and you're at 100%, they get 100 and you get 10. Or if you're the one that's really low, you can kill somebody else. And isn't that freaking awesome? Now there is a floor of 25%, so if you both are 25% or if one of you is 25%, it will actually heal you a little bit. So it is not all bad. Of course, the main use for Void Shift, it is healing the tank when it's pretty low. 100% of your HP, it is not that much HP. You're a freaking clotty. But 100% of the HP of the tank is a lot of HP. So if you are full and the tank is low, you can generate a lot of healing for the tank at very little cost to you, because you're gonna get healed up pretty quickly by the AoEs because you have little HP. So yeah, that's the usual way. You wanna do Void Shift for healing the tank, or you can kill the tank as well. Nobody will notice. If they don't have a weak aura that tells you do Void Shift, they will not know, man. You don't like somebody in the raid? Huh, skill issue. Then we got Shadow Fiend. It is a little more damage and it is a bunch of mana. This cooldown has been around since TBC. You know how it goes. You summon like a little pet, adorable tentacle monster, and he does stuff to people and he gives you mana. Ideally, you wanna sync it up with your cooldowns, but realistically, you're gonna be popping it on cooldown. It is a 3-minute cooldown. In most fights, you can use it twice pretty much. So yeah, you can pop it at the start of the fight. That's always a good idea. You could optimize for it, but YOLO. We also got Vampiric Embrace, which is also a 3-minute cooldown, but your damage will turn into healing for the entire raid. And this is another amazing, super valuable cooldown. Yes, you could pop it along your other cooldowns to get more value, but realistically, you're gonna pop it when everybody is low. You are gonna be supplementing the healing pretty much. That's how you would use it. It doesn't really cost you anything to use it, just the cooldown. So it is not a huge deal when you use it, as long as you heal people with it, as long as it's like a damage phase when people need healing. That's pretty much it. And finally, we got yet another utility ability, and that's Hymn of Hope. It is like a mana totem for the entire raid. It generates a ton of mana. In Pandaria, most DPSers do not have mana issues at all. You might, if you do not do Shadow Fiend on cooldown, you might. It's rare. So realistically, you're gonna be popping Hymn of Hope when your healers are low. So you're gonna need to have the healer's mana somewhere, your raid bars or a weak aura or whatever. Whenever you see that mana going low for the healers, you pop it. Pretty much. Simple as. Your meta gem is gonna be the Burning Primal Diamond for extra boom boom. Your yellow gem is gonna be the Quick Sun's Radiance for extra haste. Your red gem is gonna be the Reckless Vermilion Onyx for even more intellect and haste. And your blue gem is gonna be Energized Wild Jade. Remember guys, as I talked before, Critical Strike and Mastery are worthless. And also if you're over the hit cap, Spirit and Hit is also worthless. So if the socket bonus doesn't give you intellect or haste, you do not really need the socket bonus. So you can put an intellect gem on it or at the Quickson's Radiance for like free haste. If that's the case, crit and mastery, they suck. Once again, after you get your haste cap, you start falling off because there is nothing more you can go for that will give you a significant more damage. So that will be a problem later on. That will absolutely be a problem. I mean, they already changed the classes, so they might change it again. They might buff mastery later on. That's probably what's gonna happen. If I were to guess, your food is gonna be the Mogu Fish Stew for extra intellect. Your flask is gonna be the Flask of the Warm Sun for extra intellect. And your potion is gonna be the Potion of the Jade Serpent for extra intellect. Shocker, I know, just like every other caster ever. Wow! Overall, the Shadow Priest is easy, it is good, it got buffed, it is easier than before because of the orb mechanic, and the utility, especially because of the feather. The feather is broken. If you can pay attention and drop the feather where people need it to be, if you care about helping others, and if you can resist the urge to kill your teammates with Void Shift, the Shadow Priest will be one of the best classes in the game. Even if it doesn't show up in the DPS meters, it doesn't matter. They are crucial, they are valuable, and if you got two opposing toms and you care, people are gonna be desperate to have you. Which in my opinion, that's what makes a good class. We are gonna be doing a guide for every spec in the game, so subscribe, check out the Discord, we got a bunch of weak orders for every spec, we're working on it, we're making a huge library of stuff. We are gonna be streaming a lot of Pandaria launch stuff on my Twitch, nothing personal against YouTube, they just do not like really long streams in YouTube, so we're doing the extended Medina universe on Twitch for now. And subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching!